There was no visible horizon. The driving rain and blowing spray obscured where the sea ended and the sky began. From this swirling, grayish spume emerged off the bow, every 20 or 30 seconds, a colossal wall of seawater taller than the ship's 50-foot mast. The destroyer was riding unusually high in the water due to being dangerously low on fuel, bobbing in the turbulent seas like a child's bath toy. Each time Spence ascended up another wall of water, she was inundated at the crest, where she teetered briefly before pitching forward. On the thunderous ride downhill, the ship rocked, rolled, and yawned precariously. Once at the bottom of the trough, the ship heeled steeply in the driving winds until the next onslaught. Wallop and his companions watched in horror as a Mark 9 depth charge, packed with 200 pounds of Torpex explosive, 50% more powerful than TNT by weight, broke loose from its rack nearby, skipped across the deck, and slammed into bulkheads before washing overboard. An acetylene tank broke loose and did the same dance across the deck before taking flight in the wind. Over the headsets, Horky was receiving news from below. "Jesus!" he yelled, his voice sounding muted and far away. "After fire room! Swamped!" Wallop knew what that meant. Seawater had gone down the stacks and probably also into the fresh air ventilators that went from the main deck to the fire room. Pumping would have to commence immediately to stop the rising water from shorting out the electric panels in the fire room and adjacent engine room, which could mean the loss of lights, power, steering, leaving Spence, a 2,100-ton Fletcher-class destroyer with a crew of 339 men, dead in the water. Not more than a minute later, Horky yelled, "Control boards! On fire!" Right up until that moment, Wallop had given no thought to the ship sinking. He and the veteran crew had gone through too much together to worry about a storm. Over a 15-month period, they had been in some of the toughest naval action yet seen in the Pacific, for which Spence had earned 8 battle stars. They had come through their encounters with the Japanese Imperial Navy unscathed. Indeed, throughout the U.S. Third Fleet, Spence had a reputation for being not only a stalwart fighting ship, but also a very lucky one. "Lights out below! Losing power!" Spence's run of good fortune was about to end. 1. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. The Greatest Generation's first day of war dawned bright over Oahu. Although sunrise came officially to the Hawaiian Islands at 6:36 a.m. that morning, Pearl Harbor remained shaded to the east by the 2,000-foot volcanic twins, Tantalus and Olympus, for another half an hour. As the sun crested the low-slung mountaintops, its brilliance washed the sky with bold streaks of light, and painted in emerald the endless sugarcane fields stretching up the lush slopes above the nearly landlocked home port of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet. The destroyer, Monaghan, DD-354, was tied up to a nest of 3 other destroyers. The 4 vessels, which made up Destroyer Division 2, along with Aylwin, Dale, and Farragut, were moored side by side in East Loch off the north end of Ford Island, a less than 1 square mile of land situated in the middle of Pearl Harbor, home to a naval air station, warehouses, and oil storage tanks. Several dozen other ships, including 3 other destroyer divisions, were moored on that side of the island. However, most of the fleet's anchorages, including an impressive lineup of America's biggest warships on Battleship Row, dry docks, repair facilities, and a sprawling oil tank farm, were located along the harbor's expansive southeastern shores. Monaghan had been the ready-duty destroyer since 8 a.m. the previous morning, meaning that for 24 hours the ship was in readiness to get underway in 1 hour's notice, should her presence be required outside the harbor. To ensure a quick getaway, Monaghan was moored in the outboard position of the nest, and singled up with only 1 mooring line rather than multiple tie-downs, with a fire under 1 boiler and the full crew aboard. In the event of hostilities, enemy submarines were believed the most serious threat to the flow of ships that came and went from the harbor, so there was always at least 1 destroyer patrolling outside the entrance. Another destroyer was on standby to assist with any emergency outside the harbor. Monaghan belonged to the Farragut class, named for the first U.S. Navy Admiral David Glasgow Farragut, a Civil War hero credited with